Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to part two of A Civilization in Need of Self-Help. I want to speak. I gotta begin the rhythm of the talk again, but to continue, I can say certain things I was mentioning in part one. This is part two. Pretty much the idea of wondering how civilization can help itself. You see, there are many entrepreneurs in the world, many people who are starting out businesses. And the aim of a good business is that the business becomes self-sustaining. A self-sustaining business. And so, when I think about civilization, I want a self-advancing civilization and to set this pattern into motion. And really all of human knowledge is a relationship between the known and the unknown. So that means if we wanted to build civilization like an engine, it would be an engine that is endlessly seeing the unknown and endlessly continuing to know. And the fabric of its knowing, the story of its knowing is very important. You see, there was a time nobody worked. There was no work. There was no idea of employment. You know, people were just bewildered beings walking around in nature. Work around its great work. That means the great work of every living person, is not themselves. It has never been just us here in this realm. The greatest help, the greatest self-help is looking in a mirror and noticing that there is mortality. That the show will end one day. And how did you perform? With every breath as your guide, where did your eyes lead? Nature, of course, moves in many ways, moves in incomprehensible ways. And this is something that won't end because every person's inner realm is different. The only way it would change if we all open up to the inner realms, either naturally or through digital means. I feel it's going to be a hybridization. I feel the user of technology is naturally going to advance a certain degree, then it's going to be the technologies that's going to maintain the advancement. So pretty much if we want to keep civilization going, of course, it's fair to say, Buckminster Fuller, Marshall McLuhan, both these gentlemen acknowledged spaceship Earth. They saw that all of us being on, it's like, you know what it is? It's like imagine the planet is a spaceship, but we're all living on the surface of the spaceship, on the outside of the spaceship. And so, if you look at the word for the solar system. Let's say, when you look at the planets from a geocentric view, you get this impression that it's just all the planets are moving around the sun. But it's like the next phase of that is what is the sun moving around? And then you get introduced to the heliocentric view of the planets and the solar system, that the sun is moving. That means if we saw Earth as a spaceship, all the planets in the solar system are in the spaceship sun, And the spaceship sun, whatever it's orbiting around, we're on that spaceship. Do you see what I mean? We're in the position where we are founded. Let me see this difference. Let me see if I can find a picture. Okay, I found the geocentric. I can't find the heliocentric. Yeah. Just a second, folks. I'm looking for something to see if I can show this to you. Okay, check this out. Um, so, guys, here's the interesting thing. So, listen to this part. The question is asked, what is the difference between, I'm reading this online, what is the difference between the geocentric and heliocentric models of the solar system? What does our solar system really look like, the person says. If we were to somehow fly ourselves above the plane where the sun and the planets are, what would we see in the center of the solar system? That means if you could somehow get an aerial view from above, like you see this geocentric, it's like this kind of disk, kind of planets orbiting around the sun. If we were above that disk, you know, it's here. It says the answer took a while for astronomers to figure out, leading to a debate between what is known as the geocentric, Earth-centered model and the heliocentric, sun-centered. Yeah, pretty much. You're seeing the way you're seeing Earth. You're now wondering if the sun was like Earth, what would it be around? How would it be moving? So it's a totally different movement. This difference between the geocentric and heliocentric. I can't find images of heliocentric. I don't know why they don't. Sorry guys, it took a while, but I finally found the picture. If you could look at the wallpaper, whoever's tuning in. This is the difference, okay? Where it's pretty much the sun has an ego and the heliocentric, the earth has an ego and the geocentric, you know? And so this is the fascinating thing, that the relationship of spheres in empty space really does not give a stable ground for direction. That means a sphere in a vacuum, where is up, where is down? You know, and the planet's rotating this, twirling around itself as well. You know, so it's kind of fascinating that it's like, to you, on a, we can say more of a, let's say human being is the ant, and the sun is like, you know, staring at the ant. Okay? You know what it's like? It's like, imagine the earth is an ant, the sun is staring at the earth like an ant. Now we're like, what is staring at the sun like an ant? And that's the effort of the heliocentric theory, because the heliocentric theory shows then, if you were to make this more sophisticated, what the sun, what is spinning around the sun. Really, it's kind of like looking at an opportunity where something great can happen, and it's not happening. And what can one do? For how long? For how long can you knock at the door of a great civilization? That is the question. I remember I was seeing Joe Rogan, this comedian, speak about, in his early work, he was speaking about that if there was a post-apocalyptic event, how long would it take for people to forget knowledge? To forget calculus, for example. You know, this is the situation where I'm finding different angles to share what I'm perceiving as an inner realm phenomenon. When I look at that tree, I know that the way I see that tree being a tree, the moment I cease to exist, it's as if the tree never existed to the self. Many people are living self-centered lives. Imagine this whole geocentric and heliocentric. We're looking at the solar system, you know, from a view of the sun being the center and a view that the earth is being center, geocentric. So this geocentrism is kind of like human ethnocentrism. Do you know? What do I mean by that? That means it's as if you are, just like how you're on a planet, your inner realm is your own version of this planet, if I can say. You can live a self-centered life, or you can live a world-centered life. I noticed there are advantages and disadvantages. The advantages to, let's say, living a self-centered life is that you get to enjoy what you run after, and it's a free society, free marketplace. You're allowed. This is your world. You're allowed to go and engage it. You know? But the issue with the self-centrism is that at the end of that self, after you've even tasted the success of your individual dreams, you're going to wonder, what about all that other stuff that was here while I was running after my individual dream? And then you're going to notice civilization. You're going to notice this very adorable game that's happening in the cosmos where creatures have popped on a pebble and a light beam. And they're wondering about the meaning of everything. Do you know how much unknown there is? Do you know, as I'm speaking right now, there's stars dying in outer space? And there are people on Earth who'd probably see that and be like, those stars are dying for our sins. The stars are dying for the sins of the whole universe. Everything is dying for each other's sake. And here's the hilarious thing. One person commits a sin on a boat, that's a hole in the boat, it's done. Do you know? And that's the thing. There's this idea of lost technologies. For example, somebody had mentioned that there is, I don't know, what was there, like 12 ways of flight, 12 methods of flight that they were trying at the time where the Wright brothers were. But when the Wright brothers became successful, everybody focused on the winning technology. So there isn't just this survival of the fittest among human beings and creaturehood, it is also survival of the technology that relates or is efficient. I remember, I don't know, as a kid I enjoyed puzzles and not without an algorithm, with an algorithm. Like I had solved as much of it as I could, and then the top row of the cube, which was super complex and unfathomable, how you could change the top layer of the cube, So it would be very easy to get the cube to only 4 sides remaining, only 4 corners. But then the 4 corners, it would be impossible to fathom how you would change the Rubik's Cube. But then there's an algorithm, pretty much this kind of like unique algorithm. Once you memorize that algorithm, then you can solve the Rubik's Cube. Now, so I remember I memorized this algorithm and, freaked out my whole Persian, family and lineage. Astonished, maybe a better word, But it was that there was an algorithm, There was to find that algorithm. It was very complex, and it was like after I learned that algorithm, I didn't learn any other way to solve it. Then years later, I remember I saw someone, the guy was making Rubik's Cube the opposite the way I was. That means I made the Rubik's Cube. I was like, "You're making this backwards, man. What are you doing?" And I was like, I had tried one method, succeeded in one method, and had accepted that and not progressed. And that's the thing. The attention is like a bird. Either it lands on a branch and starts building, or it keeps flying until it finds the right branch. A civilization shackled to its language for its meaning of reality is a civilization that, unless it updates the shackle, it is not allowed to see anything. And there's no issue with seeing this reality as just purely atoms hovering in the middle of nowhere. And because in regards to the subjective consideration is okay. If you notice, when a person thinks of an idea, it is different than when a person thinks something and does an idea. The action is different than the thought. And many times in my life, even when I came to give this talk, there was a certain vision, and then you go as far as you can in that vision and new dimensions open up. So I would say that when the civilization realizes language is to blame here for the psychological meaning of the world, we update the language, or we recognize ourselves beyond the language and find other means. You know? Like, who knows, in the future we might all connect our heads to computers and be like, yo man, this is so much better than just being a natural being who's gonna die. At least your consciousness gets saved here. It's a totally different saving though. It's not like a holy savior kind of save. It's like literally his consciousness got saved in the computer program. Can you imagine all this mystical ideology of we're going to be saved, we're going to be saved? Little do people know they're going to be saved in computers. The human being is a declaration of its own intent. That's what you understand about energy. In the part one, I was talking about these three major archetypes. Not major, but I shouldn't say three major archetypes, but these three patterns you notice in this life, and you're good to go. You know, one pattern is the creative dimension, it's the maintaining dimension, and it's the destructive dimension. And most people, behind their eyes, think they are a person, an image, and they go through the whole day thinking they're just that image. It's so savage sometimes, you know. I can totally see. It's like when I've had moments when I've spoken to people and the conversation has ended before I could speak. And what I mean by that is I knew there's nothing to say. There's some fires that you literally, it's like the fire is about to go out. There's no need to put firewood in it, you know. But there's some fires worth keeping alive. And this is not an outer fire. It is an inner fire with no specific connotation to any narrative. You know, I'm like, you know, on some level, you know, Mr.Within feels like, I feel like I'm the lawyer of nature telling the world to stop blaming nature. You know? I feel I'm trying to save not the biological nature with these talks mainly, but the nature of man's mind. You know, today we are natural. Tomorrow, imagine like this whole campaign goes. People sign a petition. Everybody wants to be a robot. Imagine people just know like there's no other way. We got to be a robot. Imagine in the future, you're a father and your daughter comes in. Your daughter would come. Let's say, you know, in some movies you see this. The daughter comes and says, "I want a tattoo." The father's like, "No, you know, how dare you?" You know, something intense. Now imagine in the future, the daughter comes to the father, "Dad, you know, everybody in school is a robot. I want to be a robot. You know, can I be a robot?" You know, and some fathers are fools. They're like, "Yes, sweetheart, go and be a robot." You know? But there are some who, you know, they fight for the living. Because it's the maintenance. It's the spirit of Vishnu. Anytime I have to maintain something, I'm like, yo, Vishnu's here. Anytime I'm creating something, oh my God, Brahman, when did you get here? You know? And then it's like when something is destroyed, I'm like, Shiva just left. And of course, I'm being poetic here. The mind of man is a symbol-generating phenomenon. and it links the symbol with the sensory perception. And wisdom begins from discriminating between what is an experiential reality and what is a subjective, the future is a layer upon matter. Imagine somebody like like imagine you're leaving your house and you're putting bed sheets or something over the furniture so it doesn't get dust or something. I feel we have coated over this silent attention moving force with symbolism. And this symbolism has occupied the program of the mind of the being. Because if we care, I mean, isn't it weird? I'm like, what is going on in the world? I hear neurologists saying free will is an illusion, but then I see everybody being proud of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If free will is an illusion, then who's the human? You see, so we have to honor the individuality, but realize it is a collective field. So for me, I could say I'm a very simple man because I simplified all my experiences and meaning and language all to the pure experiential dimension of effort or no effort. That's it. That means the moments, just think of how many moments you have traveled through until this moment as you're hearing me. How many different moments in the space-time continuum, different versions of yourself have you experienced so far? Now Mr. Within is saying, how many versions of your civilization? How many versions of itself can your civilization experience? This wind that maybe the listeners can hear the sound of the leaves in the background, the wind blowing the leaves. The wind is speaking. This wind is saying, I am not invisible. I am as far as the vision of man will go. And so we had people where, even though Christopher Columbus, savage cultural, unupdated cultural dimensions back then, like I could totally see how this dude was on the longest boat ride ever, then got over and wasn't in a proper state of mind to spare the people, like obviously, But anyways, Christopher Columbus dared to go where no one had gone. And if you go see, and there was this writing, I don't know how accurate it was, but I saw it online where it was this text about Christopher Columbus was actually, this is going to sound hilarious, but I think this is accurate. He was looking for the bosom of Eve, but as an island, as a hidden island. Sorry guys, just a second. Okay. Can you guys imagine if I have a rotary telephone right now? They're like, Mr. Within is so archaic in his thought, literally. Keeping culture alive, folks. People don't realize it. History is as valuable as our attention is on it. Everything in life, if the future generations don't care about all the scientific advancements we've made so far, literally people are going to forget them. You think the mind doesn't replace its content? The mind is literally like attention, this invisible wind moving in matter. That's how it appears. the mind part. But the body part, of course, it's just physically here, you know. But the interesting thing is we are not born with the knowledge of what is going on. We are the going on part. So you can say, like, it's someone asking, what is the philosophy, the deepest philosophy of a newborn infant who can't speak yet? What could their deepest thing? And you see, on some level, you could say, sure, the child doesn't know anything, so the child is not thinking or the mind is not working. But I think the moment the heartbeat of the child begins, the whole system is working. So what does that mean? That means the new infant actually has a philosophy. But its philosophy is not individual. If the child, the mind doesn't know how to be an individual yet. So the mind is being the whole moment. Do you know? This is why you go see it, it's all in all the ancient mystical books, that they would say yoga and that ultimate union towards liberation was a remembrance. There's the story I want to share with you. This story comes to us. If I could paint you the image of the setting of the story, it is during, like in the story, there is a Gnostic priest, and Gnosticism is like the spiritual denomination of Christianity, the more spiritual side. Like the religion at its core value has a definition of what is spiritual, and then there's the whole esoteric dimension of things, you know. So this story is, anyways, the story begins with this man who is hopeless. He has walked into, this is like, I don't know, centuries ago, okay? So what happens is this man walks into the forest, you know, and he is in despair. He is hopeless. He is broken. He looks at this world and nothing looks back. And he's walking in this forest, hopeless, and he's like, God, give me a sign. Give me some sign, something. You know, it's like that scene, that incredible, one of the most remarkable scenes in acting from, the actor was Liam Neeson in the film Grey, which some people didn't like, but for me it was an incredible film. In the film Grey, there is a scene where Liam Neeson is just shouting at the sky, shouting at God, as if he stood his ground as a soldier and reached the end. And he's like, something, you know, let there be something, show me something, you know. Right now we're living civilized. It's very easy to not believe in some sort of idea of something more powerful. As the man is walking in the forest, he suddenly sees something that he just snaps for a second, and his hand goes right over his eyes. He sees something he can't believe. He can't understand, you know? You know what that means? That means, imagine somebody knocked on the door on, like, you know, a Saturday morning, somebody knocked at your door and you saw it was an alien. Like, you would literally, like ostrich method, cover your eyes from the unfathomability of what you have seen. Okay, so this guy sees something in nature. After shouting to the universe, show me a sign, that he covers his eyes, he sees a complete grown wolf without limbs. This is an ancient story, guys, I'm sharing. He sees this wolf without what do you call it? Without legs, no limbs. And he's shocked. That's why he covered his eyes. Because how could this creature exist? How could this creature live, survive without any legs? And he suddenly hears a growl, this guy. who's gone into the forest and asked for a sign from the universe. When he hears that growl, he quickly goes up some tree, and he sees this lion. This majestic lion walks up, to the wolf and drops a bit of food in front of the wolf, and then the lion leaves, and the wolf starts eating the food. And this guy who was hopeless, who felt he was at the bottom of the bottom, he felt he was going through the gutters of existence. The guy sees the wolf finish eating, go to sleep. He comes down in shock. And he's like, God, I see what you're saying. I'm this wolf. That you showed me this because that's a metaphor. He's just telling this to himself on his way back to town. And he's like, that's it. I'm hopeless. I have no ability. I can't do anything. Do you know? I should be like that wolf. And he decides to be a beggar. In the story, the guy goes and sees that the wolf is this, and he decides to be a beggar. And he sits there, this grown man, on the side of the street, and people are walking by, and he's not even begging. He's just there, lying like a limbless wolf. You know? Suddenly, this Gnostic priest is walking by. The image of a priest back in the day was different. And this Gnostic priest is walking by and suddenly sees this guy and stops. As if something in the moment is telling him, look at this. And he looks at this guy and he tells the guy to stand up. First thing. Tells the guy to stand up. The guy stands up for this grown man on the ground. He tells the guy to stand up, and he's like, what's going on? And the guy tells him the story, tells this Gnostic priest. He's like, oh my God, out of nowhere, this Gnostic priest is here. Let me tell him what happened, and let me see what he thought. Right? So he tells the Gnostic priest, I went into the forest, I saw this limbless wolf get fed by a lion. What the fuck, man? What does this mean? And he says after that, like, are you telling me that's a sign from God? I'm the limbless wolf. Who else could I be in that situation? Why else was God showing that? I'm the limbless wolf. Why didn't God, the lion, come and help me? He's shouting this at the Gnostic priest. The Gnostic priest. I was so close to saying like NASDAQ priest. Priests walking in the stock market. He tells the guy, he's like, what did that mean? To the Gnostic priest. The Gnostic priest looks at him and says, you got one part of that right. That it was a divine sign. But you got the second part wrong. And he's like, what second part? He's like, God or the universe or whatever didn't show you that, so you think you are the limbless wolf. The universe showed you that, so you realize you are the lion. Do you see? You are the lion. You know what I mean? So this dude's like, holy shit, I'm not a limbless wolf. He runs like a lion, in the streets of Bangkok. And the Gnostic priest was like, alright, that's one sheep off the list. Oh, man. In that story, guys, the significance was the choice of interpretation. And everybody, your inner realms, can endlessly interpret the outer realms. That's what's been happening. Every day you wake up, like, what is life? It's pretty much these three phases of conscious waking, the conscious waking state. It's like that's where this live stream is happening. You know, this isn't a dream, folks. This is actually this is the conscious waking state. But then there's the dream state, and beyond the dream state, there's deep sleep. So isn't it strange that we continue to exist whether we are conscious of it or not? So I'm like that moment where it's deep sleep. Suddenly there was a gap and I woke up. What do I do with that gap? Why was that gap there? And that is the edge of the conscious mind. And so this is what's going on. And modern psychology, hopefully I've called it the multidimensional renaissance, where all branches of knowledge are going to find hidden branches all that were there. They just have to pay attention to the symmetry and asymmetry, the reverse relationship and the symmetrical relationship. You focus in any branch of knowledge, you wonder about the symmetry of that branch of knowledge and its reverse, you understand its movement. You know? It's like somebody saying, I have a PhD in looking at birds. You know, he's like, I've read everything there is about how to look at a bird. But then you see, every person who looks, not only the bird has changed. The bird is different than the past, but you are different. And that's the magnificence of novelty. This is what I feel Terence McKenna, the scholar, was trying to unleash in Western civilization. That, hey folks, stop fearing the past. Novelty is now. That is the game, the new. The new. That means, you know that situation where it was like, Robert Frost has this poem, it's like two paths travel, I took the one less traveled by, and everybody was like, holy shit, this guy's deep, but then he actually was saying just the truth. You know, he just took a path that was less traveled, right? You know? So just like that, there was also another option. The guy could have not moved, could have just remained there till the end of time. The guy could have gone backwards, or the guy could have looked, walked, and created another trail. Endless trails, you know. So you see, that's the thing. The past makes you feel you're not allowed to create, maintain, and even at certain points stop certain dimensions of your life. When you become a pilot of your moment, that's when you're really being a human being. You know, what else can free will mean? For me, materialism is weird. It was very strange, you know, because I've seen a lot of these theist and atheist debates, and when I look at them, I'm like, look at these fools fighting over a piece of candy, you know. You know, we're so small in the universe that the truth, both in the religious context, you know, God is said to be inconceivable, and in the secular context, that we can't see the edge of the universe. It's not conceivable. You see, what I'm saying is all this, we are just being different parts of this global brain, this collective, pretty much, you know what it is? It's like humans didn't return home. They didn't return to nature. Nature is coming to you, humanity. Like when we see this, how do I say this? Anyways, guys, these are just ideas to share. Just whoever's listening to these talks, just remember, this is one corner of the universe you're listening to. This universe has endless corners. So someone in the chat section, Andromeda, says, you might know the island of Bahrain, Garden of Eden, fountain of youth. Actually, I had no idea. I mean, I know about the Garden of Eden, about the idea. I didn't know it was a location. I mean, it makes sense, because if the religion was seen as supremely true, then people would run after its mysteries. You know, there's this hilarious story of this smart guy back in the day. And this smart guy comes and sees these not as smart as him But he sees these two deceptive, smarter than the common man people, merchants, pretty much that. What was it? It's like so many people bought bottles of oil back in the day just to see it wasn't oil. So there were these merchants, and they had this idea where these people had come to this religious people who believed in heaven and hell, and they had come and said, we're selling real estate. We're selling real estate. Come and give us your hard-earned money. And we're selling real estate, these two business guys. They were selling real estate in heaven. And they're like, this real estate in heaven is this much. This real estate in heaven is this much. This real estate in heaven is this much. You know? And people were like, holy shit, man. Like, the rich people were like, why not? Let me buy. Like, who knows? Maybe these guys are right. Maybe I become a heaven owner, a landowner in heaven. You know? Because there is a strange promise of another locality after the life, whether it's good or bad, but there is a suggestion there's more after this life in the religious context. That means all religious people, when they look at the afterlife, whether they know what it is or not, it's an assumption that it has to be more based on, you know, the geometry of the religion. This guy comes and sees these two merchants are selling real estate in heaven to people. And people are getting fooled, you know? And the guy's like, why are you guys doing this? This is bullshit. How do you guys know? And the guys are like, hey man, we're a certified business. Get out of here, you know? This is an ancient story I'm saying. Certified business. And so what happens is the guy thinks and tells them, stop doing this. Learn to live honestly in your civilization when you're here once, every day. The guy sees that people don't listen. He goes to the merchants, tells them to stop, they don't stop. He goes to the people who are all lined up to buy these fake real estate in heaven, to buy language on, you know, promise of language. And this guy looks at this shit and he's like, okay, I gotta do something. And he goes and he says, okay, I'm interested to buy real estate. And the merchants are like, okay, nice. You know, another sheep. You know? The merchants are like, yeah, man, sure, let me show you our showcase of real estate in heaven. And the guy's like, do you have any real estate anywhere else? And the guy's like, what do you mean, like hell? And the guy's like, yeah, can I buy hell? And the guy's like, nobody wants to buy hell. Why do you want to buy hell? Like, that's so stupid. You know, the guy who's selling heaven is looking at this guy and telling him, that's so stupid. You want to buy hell, real estate in hell? You know? And the guy's like, how much is it? And he's like, okay. He looks at him, he's like, okay, it's a fool. Let's say, like, I don't know, 20 coins or whatever. Right? Or whatever amount. Some low amount. Some very low amount, but still as if the merchant feels he took more than he gave. And so what happens is that the guy buys all of hell. Literally, he buys all of hell from these merchants. And, you know, people are lined up and he says, thanks, guys. And he's like, does this mean I own all of hell now? He's like, yeah, man. You know, it's like, you're pretty stupid for buying it, but sure, yeah, you own all of hell legally. You know, on this fake paper we're doing it. And guys, this is a story. Remember, keep in mind, I'm telling this story from a long time ago. I'm just a modern human being, you know. Modern imagery comes when I try to animate the story. So, what happens is, the guy, the moment the deal is sealed, he's bought all the real estate of hell, he goes, and suddenly the merchants are like, yo, something's off. Why is this guy smiling? The guy walks up to the line and says, hey, everybody, this is a piece of paper. I just bought hell. You know? I just bought all of hell, and I'm letting nobody in. So you all will go to heaven. Look at how smart that guy was. He's like, I bought all of hell. I bought all of hell. Nobody, I'm not letting anybody in. And nobody had to buy heaven because everybody was like, okay, we're going to heaven. This guy owns hell, he's not letting us in, so we have to go to heaven. You see? I feel future ownership, the future shouldn't try to be owned. I think wisdom keeps the future as a gift, as a surprise. Even though they say the present is a gift, but I'm telling you, the future is really how the gift opens. You know? And that's really it, that you realize you're just an evolutionary opportunity, and you're the pilot of everything you have ever witnessed so far. And you are intelligent, and you're intelligent as the field and the particles moving in the field. And right now we're experiencing a point of civilization where it's too much language worship. It's language costume games. This is why philosophy is quiet. You know, this is why philosophers went to their ivory tower and nobody cared about their questions. You know? And the people were like, let him be. He's trying to touch the sky. I don't know if they would say that, but I think they should. They should have. So guys, that's the end of the talk. Out of curiosity, how many people would be interested in a Discord event? There is going to be a Q&A. So, okay, let me write it in case. Okay, here. I'll just set up a Discord event, guys. There's time. I got like 30 minutes. I got 30 minutes before I don't have 30 minutes, guys. It's so intense, life. Okay, so let me see how I could wrap this up. I feel like I need to say a few more things. The title has come across as a question: a civilization in need of self-help. So, does the civilization need to help itself? Well, the idea is, because we're each starting off from our own inner realms, everybody, it would require an incredible tolerance for your inner realms to first learn from the outer realms. That means, seldom is this said, but to study materialism is actually the first thing they tell you if you want to get immaterial insight. You gotta find something that you trust, and then you can move. Just like how you climb, you need to find something you trust and you can move. You know, and trust me, your psychology is very geometrical. You know, I'm gonna show you. I mean, I've showed this a couple times, but I'll show you here. You know, it's hilarious. In the cultural program, like a snowflake means weak, means weakness. But when you look at a snowflake up close, you see its utter geometrical complexity. So that means there's a huge chance behind your eyes your utter geometrical complexity. Utter geometrical complexity. You know, sometimes, I mean, this hasn't happened, but I feel in the future probably somebody's going to be like, I don't understand your talks, and I'll be like, it's fine, man, your grandkids will. Yeah. Sorry guys, I'm just doing this endless scrolling to find this picture. Um, there we go. So if you look at this, do you believe it? This is a snowflake, you know? So this snowflake is geometrical. I mean, how does the human being process such geometrical complexity in a snowflake? This means the death of the snowflake, you know? The snowflake is not a snowflake breaking, evaporating. Who knew such complex geometrical forms were evaporating in front of our eyes, you know? And when you look at it, it's as if like you can feel like you're this employer of this product design company, and you've gone to this employee and you're like, buddy, what are you doing trying to improvise? Come and make these snowflake products for me. Use this geometrical shapes in this snowflake in the product, you know? Can you imagine these geometrical shapes that are snowflakes, this complexity is one day turned into Lego pieces, and children suddenly one day realized the Lego they were playing with was like the geometrical complexity of snowflakes? Like, yeah. Everything can update once you find the space for it. In life, you can fall, you can be pushed back, you can even stop. There's moments in my life where I have felt I have seen more Brahman. It was a creative moment, you know? There's been moments in my life where it's like I had to forget about the individual that I was just to be able to, with hyper attention, be able to look at the environment. That means sometimes it's good to forget yourself when there's something outside of yourself that you require to process, you know? This is why you see like those people like Albert Einstein or Steve Nash, they're like, why is this guy quiet for such a long time? Because the person is walking in their inner realms, you know? Your imagination, people don't realize it, your imagination is your private office. It's your birthright. But just because it's unknown to you, you don't understand the relationship with it, mainly because you think you are a character in a story. If the experiencer, the pilot in the present moment, finds an ability to perceive, to fly beyond the clouds of language, to go beyond the language threshold, and somehow from beyond the language threshold, that means you experience something that has never been put to words, and probably this is the case for everybody. Let me tell you, it's not the words in the book that are unique, it is the eyes that are looking at it that are unique. It has never been the words. Words are just ink on a page. This is why, on some level, when language is the reason why violence occurs, where wars arise from the disagreement of leaders colliding foolishly, do you know? That means sometimes I wonder if the Titans in ancient Greece were the gods that had forgotten their elegance, you know? We can take steps that are taking us back into the cave or taking us outside of the cave. And we have to step outside of this linguistic cave of the mind that we have thought we are. You know, I mean, honestly, like this question, some people sometimes say, what is the meaning of life? Well, it's not done yet. It's still like, it's like, how was the roller coaster ride? I'm still in the middle of it, you know? So you see that language falls short and you're left with the experiencer that you are. And now the comprehension of this experiencer in the future, I feel in the next 100 years, identity and both the understanding of what identity means for a social citizen, a citizen in a civilization, and what the politics of the world will be, there will be such great shifts. I'm telling you. It's not just human beings or just masses that are growing on this earth. We're not just stuff. We are sight. We are minds. It's like when you look at overpopulation, Physically looking, oh man, it's a crowded room, what you gonna do? But when you look at it non-physically, it's 8 billion minds. That means I feel that if we build sky cities, this is a very, you might think this is, you know, guys, sky cities are our future, you know. Now, who wants to come on my side? You know? I'm just saying that it's not that the problems are just becoming complex. The problem solvers are also becoming complex. And that is our savior. Our savior, we might have prayed for it in front of our eyes, you know, not realizing that it was standing there right behind them. You know, in some sense, it's religion has very strange paradoxes, of course, but those paradoxes are necessary because you could see the religious text is trying to activate both brain hemispheres. You know, you see this in a lot of traditions. Like there's something called Zen koans. Zen koans are like, you know, as Alan Watts said, one of them. It was like, it's like trying to bite your own teeth. You know, or trying to touch the tip of your finger with the tip of your finger, like nonlinear analysis, and then there is the unknown observance beyond. So I'm telling you, this thing that there's people who know, that people have knowledge. Let me tell you, we're antennas. I'm not joking. We are antennas, but we are receiving the signal as the experience of the world, and the signal is light in our eyes. You know, it is sound in our ears. It is the breath in our lungs. We are the advanced communication of the universal sector. You know, it is suddenly realizing, you know, it's as if one night Gaia, the planet, heard a crying, a weeping. The planet, sorry guys, I might get unnecessarily emotional here, but I gotta paint this picture, it's too good. She started hearing tears. Tears from the edge of space, crying. And the planet had heard this crying for so long. This crying coming from no face, no image. Just this tears, the sound of weeping in the universe. That the planet Gaia shouts and says, who is it that cries? But the tears don't stop, and there is no answer. Suddenly, the tears of Gaia, the planet, sees that even though there's no answer, the tears have continued, there's another voice. And Gaia, the planet, realizes let's continue with the story. Earth keeps listening. Gaia keeps listening. Suddenly Gaia hears a voice. It is the voice, as if a voice that is like the older brother. And it's as if the Andromeda galaxy comforts the Milky Way galaxy. And Gaia is never the same. You know, that's the thing. That's the... it's all about an analysis of form. A lot of stuff is just designed before we contain it in a story. That means, if, like, this is a good question. Okay, so Aziz, guys, that story I was sharing, you see, this idea of this notion that there is an invisible other, it opens up to the archetype that the person feels they're lacking. Okay? Now, in this scenario, I was attempting to see psychology. I was personifying the planet, and I was suggesting that the planet is hearing this weeping. This weeping and not knowing where it's from, not being able to fathom, only seeing that weeping stop when the older brother, the Andromeda Galaxy, comforts the Milky Way. I'm trying to say sometimes macrocosmic events I don't know. I honestly don't know. Andy Warhol has this strange quote where he says, only those who go to the edge see something those who couldn't. And if you are a human being who's like, alright, I'm mortal, I'm alive once, let me see the edge of this mind. Like, where is its limits? Like, this is a good question. I'm going to ask this from the chat section. How many people listening right now know their limitations? Know all their limitations, let's say. Or let me not say all, but do you know your limit? This is a good question. And if the limit is an image, you still don't know. When I say knowing your limit, that means where in your life and interests have you met the unknown? Because without excitement, how could passion be born? Without something important, how could there be a pull towards something? Unless we somehow make the advancement of civilization a great story for every future generation to participate in, you know, it's all about finding models. I would say right now we are pioneers. You know, just like how the early settlers in Canada, you know, 150 years ago, the early settlers, they built, for the time it was advanced. It was as if there was no homes, there were no houses, and then mankind began building up like very, you know, well-structured houses and whatnot. So it was as if it was an effort of growth, you know. It was a design. It was a complexity in design, and that's the thing. If we can reduce all these stories of what truth and reality and meaning is to just the design level, and look at how the symbol and the image is oriented, and is the symbol oriented to an inner image or an outer image? What does that mean? That means I'm holding this coffee cup in my hand. The coffee cup is an outer image. In my mind, I'm remembering yesterday when I held a coffee cup. That is the inner image that instantly arises when I look at this object. Every object you look, you can notice. So if we can bring the problems of our society to a simplistic level of studying design before morality, that means you study the design of a system, then you think about good and bad. Not think the good and bad before. And this doesn't mean setting the system in motion. Like in one of my science fiction novels, I saw this whole, I mean, like, people don't realize it now. People, like the atheist, thinks that a God is the problem on Earth. No, the problem is that in the future there could be a technology that could be our God. You know, AI is the problem. You know? And some atheists have noticed this. Some atheists haven't. You know? Ever since Friedrich Nietzsche said God is dead and man killed him, it's as if man's had a subconscious urge to be like his father archetype. You know? So I'm telling you anything. If you, whoever you are, this is a cool thing. Go try this out and let me know. Whatever you do, just first of all take like 1 to 2 minutes to preferencelessly, no opinion, no attempt to solve a problem, stare at the problem and look at the problem. First, look at the design of the problem. When you look at the design, you're looking for the origin. When you're looking for the origin of the problem, you're wondering how the problem arose. When you reach that origin of the problem, you notice the free will that's authorized it into motion. So what happens to you as a human being has to do with how you're using this advanced instrument that you're being. The bird abides by its nature. Can you imagine if birds had an ego? You know, like you, for example, you're on your porch. You tell the birds, like, bother the birds there. You're like, get out of here, bird. And the bird's like, you're telling me to get out of here, bro? Nature belongs to all of us. And the bird stays, and I'm like, bird, get out of here. You know, and I'm like, that bird has an ego. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna end the talk here. I'm gonna open it up to Q&A for 5 minutes, and I'm gonna share the Discord link. And after 5 minutes, I'm gonna join the Discord. So anybody who wants to talk in person, we can. The School of Athens 2.0 spirit can be kept alive. All right, let me see this Discord link. It's like when I type Discord, I'm like, in the future, if chords become conscious, they'll be like, were people dissing us before? We were Alright guys, here's the link. So this is technically Q&A. The talk is ended. Thanks for listening so far. If anybody has a question, feel free to share. It's 5:55 right now, okay? So 5-minute Q&A. I understand that usually because I paint pictures in these talks, that usually I mean, like, how much questions can somebody have about an artwork? But if anybody was interested in the topic, questions about the topic, feel free to ask. Okay, so okay, guys. So um, I would recommend people to join the Discord, and then there could be a group conversation. The Discord link, you just click on that link, you follow the steps, and it takes you to this voice chat platform. And then people can vocally, like, you can hear your voice, hear my voice, and I can hear your voice. Like, you can talk in person pretty much in Discord. Um, yeah, just philosophical discussions on the philosophical nature of reality. Pretty much, my vision is to get going around the world this initiative called School of Athens 2.0, where people, wherever they are, they're daring to wonder about the whole system, but they are not letting go of who they are throughout the process either. You know. Okay, is anybody here? The Discord. Oh, okay, nice. All right, guys. So somebody asked a question. Let's see, we delay on this. Oh no, I closed the tab. I mean, I kind of feel like the fact that we can, when you're on a web browser and you can go forward and backward, it's kind of preparing you for time travel psychology, isn't it? It's like, oops, I made a mistake. Control Z. It's like, is that a fucking time machine? It's like mini time machine. Okay, here. So you think? No, Aziz says, what is this episode about? Pretty much, this is part two of me wondering about how can a civilization help itself, and what does that really mean? Pretty much that question. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, I'll see you in the Discord. The vocal component for this has ended, so you're just gonna see the Discord link. You can join the group in the Discord. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Blessings.